Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, welcome to a continuation of our warehouse series. We're going to continue our exploration of this idea of kind of a pass-through warehouse where we build a warehouse in the middle of our line and run trains back and forth between two cities in a two-city cluster, stopping off at the warehouse on the way between as a way to move both manufactured goods and raw materials from the warehouse. So we're going to set up here at we're going to our usual favorite spot, and we're going to take our usual favorite two cities, Toledo and Grand Rapids, and we're going to hook them up, but we're going to hook them up a little bit differently. We're going to put a warehouse right in the middle, right along the line, and then we're going to run our lines through that warehouse. This is similar to the technique used if you happen to watch the revisit of the Over the Mississippi campaign mission. But I've looked at it some more, thought about some things that need to be done to make it more effective and more useful as a potential starting strategy. Because anything that we do has to not only work in theory and in practice, but it has to work economically, meaning that you have to be able to build it as part of a scenario or a mission, or it's kind of useless. Because if the only way you can possibly build it is to give yourself tremendous amounts of money and not have any constraints at all, then that's fine if you're doing like a total free play where you just, play around and do whatever you want to do in sandbox mode or whatever. But if you're going to actually use this stuff in practice, you need to have something that's practical and can actually be done in a fairly cost-effective way. So what I've done here is build lines that are running right through the middle two platforms of the warehouse. I'm going to set up supply towers on either side so that it'll serve both this line and the lines that are going to come in from the raw materials. And I've also intentionally left the topmost and bottommost platforms, so platforms 1 and 4 of the warehouse, open so that we can bring raw materials in from either direction. And so one of the things I like about this approach of having this warehouse in the middle is that it really opens things up, because I don't have a line running to do for passengers and mail, another line running freight, and then trying to figure out where can I put a warehouse and get typically all your raw materials won't be on one side of the tracks or the other side. It's going to be on both sides. So this approach is very flexible from that point of view. So very practical, in my opinion, when we're trying to solve the specific problems that each of these scenarios represent for us. So what we've done is just set up this line, and now we're trying to figure out how to, and always the hardest one to set really is the one that's closest. So we're going to set that logging up to go into the warehouse, and it really is the clumsiest one to set up is is typically the one that's the closest to you. But we get that done. And the other thing I love about this approach, there's some pros and cons here. So one of the pros, as I think I've said this before in the Over the Mississippi revisit, but one of the things here is that I can put repairs in that warehouse, and it'll actually get all my city-to-city lines and all my raw materials and give me one place to repair them. Now that can create a bottleneck as you get a lot of volume going on, and you can later, when you have tons of money, you can spread that out and move the repairs away from the warehouse. But for right now, it's just great to be able to only spend 80 grand and really know that I have the capability of repairing every train I'm going to run. So that's a big pro. So what you saw me do there was set up a couple of the lines of city to city. So you go Grand Rapids, warehouse, Toledo, warehouse. The idea is, and I'm running right now as automatic, which means they will pick up passengers, mail, and goods. So you might ask, well, gee, you're not going to run enough freight. You'll see how we handle that in a little bit. But right now, what my main goal is to have trains that are as close to full as possible. And if you've played this game for any time at all, you know that you can't have full passenger trains. They just don't. You rarely get them. You get two large cities with a few trains running, and you might occasionally get a full train of passengers and mail. But the reality is that you're going to run a lot of trains with one, two, three kind of box cars running, and not have nice full. And of course, naturally, we get our curlicue defect and have to do a bunch of deleting. But anyway, while I'm dealing with that, I can go on and talk about this theory. So you're going to have, when you're running passengers, you rarely get full trains. But you want to have as full a train as you can get, particularly in the early going, because money is so tight. And we're trying to find a way to generate income and get the biggest bang for our buck we possibly can out of our trains, so that when they get to a station, they're unloading a full load of in this case, passengers, mail, and freight. So outside of your honeymoon period, that little period where you get a bunch of beer from Grand Rapids and a bunch of meat from Toledo, once that's exhausted and these two start more or less trading normally with goods, you're going to run empty trains all the time, or not empty, but barely full, or just a few cars on them. And by using this technique, once we get some goods going into that warehouse, like logs and wheat and corn, things that are used by both cities, we're going to be seeing a pattern of full trains coming in to each station, and that's a beautiful thing. That generates money for us. And it really stimulates city growth. And again, as I said, we'll talk about how we deal with the passengers a little later on in this. But for right now, the goal is to get trains running that are as full as possible, and the best way to get that to happen is to have automatic trains that are running passengers, mail, and goods. And we don't have very many goods to ship from the warehouse yet, so why run freight only and have them run basically empty freight only and ignore our passengers? And at the same time, it's not practical in a lot of cases to run a dedicated passenger line right now between these two cities and set up all this other stuff. You're typically not going to have a lot of money. Now, in this case, I didn't want us to have to wait forever, so we had pretty good starting funds here, about 1.8 million, I think it was. But at the same time, in a lot of our scenarios, we start with 500,000, maybe $1 million, and you've got to have something that you can build very efficiently. And in fact, if you've watched a lot of the videos where I'm actually doing kind of playthroughs of scenarios or campaign missions, a lot of times I don't use warehouses at all. And the biggest reason is that just the funding is way too tight to use them. However, I think that by using this approach with this kind of pass-through warehouse in the middle, you can kind of bite the bullet and throw in that $200,000 warehouse, provided you can then quickly get that running full trains and recoup that money quickly, so that it becomes a good investment for you and doesn't slow down your development and your ability to hit the early objectives of the mission or the scenario that you're trying to achieve. So here we are. We're pumping. We're just basically now doing basic city building. But we're going to run cattle directly into our meat factory in Toledo. And now the wheat we're going to run into the warehouse because both cities need it. Now, obviously, Grand Rapids needs more because they have beer up there. But both cities need it, so we ran wheat directly into the warehouse. We ran logs directly into the warehouse because both cities can use them. We're going to run our veggies into our warehouse. And you can see this is where it's nice and flexible, because now I can go on the south side here and come down and link up without having to do a crossover, because I've got an open line down there on the south side of the line, and I already used the open line on the north side to get my logs and wheat. So we're just going to pump items into that warehouse as quickly as we can. And a lot of times when you do scenarios, you have this kind of deal where I have to connect a bunch of rural stations to your network, and the warehouse makes that so easy because you can just just fire right into that warehouse and go. You don't have to worry about running lines to multiple cities in order to give them coverage. Our little city-to-city line that's running, Toledo to warehouse to Grand Rapids to warehouse is going to take care of distributing those raw materials back to both cities. So that's where the warehouse is a lovely thing. And if you can come up with a way, in my opinion, that it makes it a financially feasible thing early in the game, all the better. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for a way to make this a feasible solution so that we can start using warehouses in our scenarios more and not have to just forgo them because they're just literally too expensive. So I'm going to shut up for a moment. I think I'm actually going to fast forward here for a bit because now we're just literally hooking up all the things that we can. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit and we'll pick it back up when we move on to another aspect of this build and what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, we didn't go very far. We just finished off the corn and the fruit up there. We switched from milk to fruit in the warehouse because the fruit is closer, and so that means there's always this, when a two-city cluster, you have to decide, is my sixth industry going to be dairy or distillery for alcohol? And I think the decision's simple based on which one's available. Do I have fruit and sugar and milk is distant, or do I have milk and not both of the other two? That would tell you which one you want to do. So in this case, we're going to go with a distillery and alcohol. And if you're not familiar with the way I think about these two-city cluster, I'll get into that a little bit as well. The key to your growth is really being able to balance your industry so that you have 6 unique and needed industries in the cluster, so that the industries are helping you to grow. Now here we're directly connecting cotton into Toledo because that's where the textile plant is. That's the plant that needs cotton. So we directly run cotton into Toledo. We also earlier directly ran cattle into Toledo because that's where the meat industry is. So when you have one that's unique, if your cluster is only going to have one of X, be that in this case meat and textiles, then it makes sense to run your lines, not tie up spots in your warehouse, but run your lines directly in. So at this point, we are now supplying this cluster with cattle and cotton, wheat, logs, vegetables, fruit, and corn. So we're giving it 6 raw materials in the warehouse and 2 more directly into Toledo for a total of 8. So that gives us pretty good. I mean, that's really, you're kind of done if you want, depending on how big you need to get your city to grow in terms of developing of a 2-city cluster. You'll see what happens with these 2 cities in a fairly quick time frame, just how much they can grow. So we've got our direct lines. I'm now I've got a little money, so I'm spreading out my maintenance. So I'm going to put maintenance in my 2 city stations as well. So now there's 3 spots for them to get maintenance. And another reason I did that was because, of course, we've got the cattle and cotton lines just going straight to Toledo. They don't touch the warehouse. So our warehouse maintenance shed was not going to help them. So now we've got everybody again covered with maintenance. We've got to spread out a little more so we won't have quite the congestion in our warehouse, which you got to watch with this kind of an approach. But now we're checking to just make sure that we're getting everything run in there. And now we're also looking, here we go. Now, an industry. What you want to do with your industries is take the first 6 available and spread them 3 and 3 in your 2-city cluster. So we really want to have a clothing industry or a log-based industry that for this next one. So we're going to do our best to build, to get the cash in order to build that industry, because a computer owner might put a good choice in there, but he could also put a horrible choice in there. Now, he might make a redundant meat or a redundant textiles. We've seen cases where you have a textile already and another textile pops up. That's worthless. We want to have 6 unique industries in our cluster. All right, so now we're going to just repay a bond, open a bigger bond so that we can get that. We really want to put that industry in, and you want to own these industries obviously when you can. Now, if we were playing a real scenario or a mission rather than this kind of test, obviously we may have particular constraints of what we need to get done for the mission. It would cause us to take other actions like hooking in other cities, running passenger lines, what have you. But for now, we're just focusing on the theoretical and city building with this pass-through warehouse. So now we're getting some money so we can do something, and we're going to put the Taylor in, and that gives us, we've got, this means at this point we have 4 industries in our cluster, and we have one of each of the 4 possibilities. So we have beer and clothing up there in Grand Rapids. We have textiles and meat down in Toledo. Now, that helps us in a bunch of ways. That textile industry now has a customer for its textiles up, and so it can sell textiles to the cities, and it can also sell additional textiles to the clothing industry. And then of course that clothing industry, when the cities are big enough, can start selling its clothing to the both cities, and now we can make money. We can haul more textiles, and we can haul the clothing and get paid for that and make money on the clothing since we now own the industry. So we're 2/3 of the way there as far as our cluster development goes, because we've got all 4 of the available industries at this point. And we are getting city growth. And we're starting to look. It's looking pretty good. We've got you can see the cities have already grown some, but it's not perfect. We don't get constant growth. That's extremely hard to achieve, by the way, where you get just constant big growth. You can get it early on in a real small city, but what you really want to do is just get it over 60. Just keep it steadily growing. That's what you're really after. So one of the things we need to look at is how many of these. You can see I've got like 6 of these trains running right now, and at this point, this is a key point. We're now switching all these trains to freight only. I think it's important that you do this because we want to make sure that we have space available to haul those raw materials from the warehouses to the 2 cities. And if we've got the lines cluttered with passengers and mail, we are taking up very valuable space. And you can only put so many trains on these lines before they get ineffective. They become too congested, there's too much wait time, and you really are wasting money by running the trains. They'll still make money, but you could make more money if you actually had less trains in a lot of cases. So in order to get that growth back up, and you'll notice as soon as we do this, we see a spurt of growth in both cities. And that's because now we're able to carry, our passengers and mail are out of the way, and we're able to carry freight. So now we've got a very effective freight line running between Grand Rapids and the warehouse in Toledo and the warehouse. So we're getting raw materials and manufactured goods moved between the 2 cities, which helps give the demand satisfaction for both of the cities, helps us with our growth, and makes us a lot of money because we're now shipping full trains of freight. And you can see there that now our just from that change, we've done really well. So I think the way to do this is to set it up as automatic to start with. And this is my thoughts right now. I'm still experimenting with this, but right now I would say start it automatic. Once you get a reasonable number of goods in the warehouse, and maybe even do it sooner than I do it here, switch it over to freight only so that you're making sure that those goods are getting distributed to your cities. And then later on, you'll see we'll go back in and add a passenger line when we have the funds. But if you try to add it at the beginning, it's going to be tough on you in order to build the warehouse and have this kind of efficient exchange of goods going on, because you're just not going to have enough money. So so now we're looking at both cities are hitting a growth spurt. So again, I probably could have if I were going to do this one again, I would actually change it to freight a little sooner. Like as soon as I had maybe 3 goods that were coming in decent quantity into my warehouse, rather than waiting. I waited here until I had all 6 goods going in, and plus cotton and cattle. So we really got 8 goods going at this point, and maybe around 4 or 5, somewhere in there. There's no real, I don't know the exact point yet, but we would do that, and then we get our growth spurt, and we can get our museums in, which are crucial to growth, because that's 10% satisfaction right there. So now both these cities are going to grow much better, and the biggest change we did was simply change those lines to freight lines. So our city-to-city lines now are all freight, and we're not carrying any passengers. So let's move ahead a little bit and see what's going to come up next. Okay, now we're starting to see really good city growth because we're moving those goods, and we don't want to forget about our passengers. So we're going to build another line, and we just happen to have a platform to the north there, or northeast, from Toledo and from Grand Rapids. That's free. So we're going to run a line between them to get our passengers and mail business back in operation. So we don't want to abandon it. It's good money, and in some of the scenarios you have to do it. I mean, it's actually a requirement. But we're just trying to work out and how to make this work, and I'm so glad I finally broke through and learned how to use the little spinning middle wheel to do my heights. It does make it a lot easier. So thanks for those of you who helped me out with that. So now we're just setting up a line, and so it's going to, it necessitates some bridges here, because it is, we've already grabbed that turf for our freight lines. But I personally would rather see the passenger line negotiate the bridges. Not because the passenger line trains themselves can handle it, but because they're so much lighter than the freight, and so going over a bridge and having an incline is not such a big deal. Whereas freight, unless you have really good trains, and in this time period you have okay trains, not great ones, an incline can really slow you down. So here we are. We're just going to simply set up a connection between Grand Rapids and Toledo. And the other thing is, now, because these cities have grown now and they're getting to be a decent size, we're going to get decent volume of passengers and mail. So this passenger line will immediately become a pretty solid line for us. So we'll make it passenger only. It can and eventually, if you had better trains, of course, you would get a faster passenger train and put it on those lines. But the other nice thing is, because it's now a dedicated passenger only line, we will get express trains, and we'll get that income bonus for having express trains. So again, the way I'm looking at this right now, we run automatic at the beginning so that we get passengers, mail, and freight, and keep our trains full. At some critical point, probably 3 to 4 raw materials into the warehouse, we switch over to freight only for our city-to-city line, and then we come back when we have plenty of money, and we build a dedicated passenger line to take advantage of that passenger income. So in this way, we get passenger income almost all the time. There were only maybe a month or 2 gap where we weren't hauling passengers with the approach that we took right here. And you can see we've got excellent city growth. We've got Grand Rapids growing nicely and getting up there. They're just hit 90,000 population already, and we are in our second year. So we've got Grand Rapids up to 90,000. We've got Toledo. Actually, at this point, Grand Rapids was outgrowing Toledo. I can tell you, spoiler alert, they actually flip roles, and Toledo passes Grand Rapids back up and becomes larger. But the city growth in this is just excellent. So now we've got that chance to put another business in, and we definitely want to have the sawmill because it's log based. We're supplying logs, and it's the next one kind of in the food chain. It's the next one up that's going to be needed by both of the cities. So now the lumber that we create can be sold in Grand Rapids and sold in Toledo and shipped to Toledo. So we get extra money for that. So again, this whole thing with these clusters is controlling if like in this case of a two city, controlling the six industries so that you have the first six in your set. So whatever that is, and that varies from time period to time period. But in this particular time period, it is meat and beer, cloth and clothing, lumber, and then you have to make a choice between dairy or alcohol, and that choice to me is made by the proximity of your raw materials. So in our case here, we'd originally thought we would do milk. We realized that milk's a little farther away and fruit was very handy for us. So we're going to put a distillery down here in Toledo because we know we have both sugar and fruit up in our warehouse. So we can have now that, and that will give us six industries that are all being supplied. And here's the beauty of this. We are using the wheat to do the beer, the cattle to do the meat, the cotton to do the cloth. We're going to use the logs for the sawmill. We're going to use the fruit and the sugar. I keep leaving out the sugar. Fruit and the sugar for the distillery that we're about to build. And so we've distributed the use of our raw materials to feed different industries. We've used all the raw materials that we have at our disposal, and we've built a two-city cluster that is really self-reliant and can go up to 120,000 plus in population quite easily. And you'll see by the end of this, that's where we get. Toledo right now is about 97,000. And now that it's going to have these three industries that are helping it with DemandSat, the three industries from Grand Rapids that are also helping with demand satisfaction, and vice versa for Grand Rapids. Now with our 8 raw materials that we're bringing into our cluster, 6 in the warehouse, 2 others, and the 6 industries that we have, which are also 6 things providing demand satisfaction. We can grow this little cluster will grow and grow and grow and get up 100. It'll go at least 120. It'll go probably 150, 160,000 even over time. But again, we are just past into 1832, which means we have used in about 2 years' time. We've grown 2 cities to, what are they, 90, 100,000, somewhere in there. Well, they both hit 90,000 certainly. And we're making good profit. We're running goods, and look at our lines. They're so. One thing I love about using the warehouse is how simple the lines look. This isn't the big spaghetti mess flying all over the place. These are nice, organized looking lines because of this approach. So again, another pro for having that warehouse early, and this kind of pass-through idea is the simplicity of that line. That looks like a train line. That doesn't look like a big pile of spaghetti code coming out, or spaghetti track running all over the place. So here we are, over 100,000 in Toledo, looking good, and we're in March of our 3rd year. So I hope you see that this kind of an approach can work very nicely. It does have some pros and cons. You do need to make the switch, as I said. Now you could run this freight only from the beginning. I think that would limit your income way too much. And I also think the other problem with that is, in most scenarios, you're not going to have the funds to give you that luxury to just say, well, I'm just running freight. But if you start with your, if you start with your passengers and mail and freight, and then move it over as soon as you feel like you have a critical mass of raw materials to move into freight only. And then, you're having a stronger economy at that point, and you can take advantage of that and build your dedicated passenger line. Then you're going to have a nice little money-making machine right here. So, and plus just rapid city growth, beautiful city growth. So that's really about all there is to say about this. We've really looked at two city clusters and how you want to manage those industries. We've looked at how you want to use that warehouse, how you want to, start with passengers, take them off, put them back on in their own dedicated line, and go from there. And I think this approach has a lot of merit. And I think what I'm going to do next, this is part of the warehouse series, but I think after this I'm going to kind of take this approach and apply it to one of the scenarios and try to illustrate just how you can use this. I also have some notions about how you want to expand to multiple warehouses and expand to regions. And I want to get into that a little bit more as well as time permits. But right now, I kind of like this idea. And by the way, all these trains, if you look at them, I even went through this as a practice. Look at this. They're all full. Look at this. We've got 8 trains. They're all full, or they're heading to the warehouse to get filled up. So every time that one of these trains stops at a city, it is unloading a full load of freight. That's good money. That's the way you keep your city growing. And the one thing I would comment on this one, I have 8 trains going, and I think they end up waiting about 35% of the time. That's a little too high. You can see they're stacked up there a little bit. They just happen to be at this end. The Grand Rapids end doesn't have quite as much activity at this point. It'll spread out over time. But I think 8 trains on this line, probably a couple too many. 6 might have been better. But you can see they're all making very good money. And they're all, as I said, running full. The only time they're not completely full, obviously, is running from a city to the warehouse. But once they get to that warehouse, they're full the rest of the way. And the key point is when they unload and get paid, they are full. So full trains makes for good profit and for good city growth. So I think that's enough to talk about this one. Again, I want to take this concept and apply it to another scenario or campaign mission. So look forward to, hopefully you'll be able to join me for that one a little later on. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.